Tying up a simple bunny leech today. This is an extremely versatile fly, and I can't speak of it enough because it catches all kinds of warm water species in my local waters, but it's also great for trout and even salmon and steelhead. A little bit maybe larger or different color combinations in terms of the hook and the rabbit, but it's just a simple fly, but it's extremely versatile. This particular version uses a regular zonker for the tail, but we're going to use a cross-cut rabbit strip for the body. There's different ways you can tie this, and I strongly recommend you go look out on YouTube. There's tons of videos on tying a bunny leech with or without cones or beads and different things like that, articulated ones and everything else that you can do. But this one's just very, very simple with a couple of different rabbit strips, which I'll go into more detail when I'm actually tying the fly. So that's a simple bunny leech. I'll get started tying. So I'm going to start the bunny leech with my hook and the vise. This is a Tiemco 5263. Just a 3X long streamer hook. I have seen these tied on longer streamer hooks. I've seen them tied on shorter, wider gapped hooks. It really depends. If you want to put a cone on the front of this, I might even go with a 4X long streamer hook. I debarbed the hook for thread because it's going to be an olive. Bunny leech, I'm going to go with a ultra thread 140 denier in a light olive. Before I attach my thread, I'm going to put some weight on the hook shank. I'm using some lead wire. This is a .020 lead wire. Now you could, again, use lead-free wire if you want. You could put a bead on the front. You could put a cone on there. Some people will put a cone or a bead as well as some lead wraps on here. This is a leech pattern, so generally you're going to fish this closer to the bottom than higher up in the water column. You're going to attach that lead. I put in about 20, maybe 22 wraps of lead on here. I'm filling up pretty much the hook shank right there. I'm going to attach my thread behind the eye of the hook, getting it right up to that lead. Then I'm going to loosen up my wraps and go over the lead to just behind it to finish attaching the thread on there. Not going to worry about building up a thread dam on the rear portion because when I tie in the tail, it will kind of fill that in for me. I am going to put a thread dam in right in front just to help when I am palmering the rabbit strip in. It doesn't have a ledge there I have to deal with. So here I'm going to tie in my tail. For the tail, I'm using a regular zonker, rabbit zonker. This is just a dyed olive. It's kind of a darker olive. The one thing I want to point out here is that you'll notice on this zonker strip, the hair is in line with the strip. This is the interesting thing about this particular fly. It's a great fly to learn how to work with regular zonker strips and then what they call cross-cut zonker strips. If this were a whole hide of rabbit right here, this would be the head of it, this would be the tail of it. The hair grows in a certain direction. If I cut these strips out in that direction, I end up with what's called a zonker. It's basically inline hair with the hide there. Now, cross-cuts the other way. If I take that skin and I cut across it this way, what I end up with is hair that is perpendicular to the hide. See, all of this it's not pressed that way or anything. It's just naturally perpendicular to the hide as opposed to running in line with the hide. That means I can tie this in for the tail, and I have hair that will point right out the back, which is what I want it to do. I want it just to be the back end tail section of the fly. Now I'm going to leave this long for now, and I'm going to cut it in just a minute. But the cross cut, the nice thing about the cross cut is when I tie this in correctly and then wrap this forward, when I wrap it forward, notice how the hairs are all naturally pointing backwards. I don't have to brush them back and partially wrap over them to wedge them back or anything like this. They just naturally go back that way. Having said that, that's part of the reason I chose to tie this bunny leech up with the crosscut. If you look around on videos on the internet, you'll find a lot of videos where people will make a dubbing loop here, and they'll take some rabbit hair off a skin or off a strip like this, and they'll put it in that dubbing loop, spin it up, and then they make the body from that dubbing brush they make of the rabbit hair. Just as effective if you want to. The advantage to that is you don't have more hide on there. This rabbit hide will soak up water, and it makes the fly a little bit heavier in terms of casting it, not necessarily fishing it, but in terms of casting it. So it's up to you which way you want to go, but this is a real quick and easy way. Just get you some cross-cut rabbit strips, and you can tie these in and wrap them in real easy. Now there is a trick to this. You'll notice that the hide here, the hair is 90 degrees to it in a certain direction. If I were to tie this in, let's just say I used this strip right here, where when I'm looking at it and I tie that in with this strip up, if the hair is pointing towards me, when I go to wrap this in, it's going to flip over, and notice the hair is all pointing forward. It's not what we want. We want it the other way. So the trick really is that when you're tying this in and you're looking at the hide and you're going to tie it with the hide side up, you want the hair pointing away from you. That way, when I tie this in with the hide side up and that hair pointing away from me, when I start to wrap that in, it's going to flip over to that hair being on the upside then, but the hair will naturally be flowing to the back of the fly, like that. So before I wrap that in, though, I'm going to take some Flex Cement right here, and I'm going to put just a small layer of Flex Cement along the hook shank and along those lead wraps. This is going to just help glue that hide a little bit down so that as I'm fishing it, if that hide gets nicked or something and or breaks, it may not unravel. It may save the fly for a little bit more use. The one thing you have to be careful when you're wrapping this hide in, I should say this crosscut strip with that Flex Cement on there, you don't want to put a wrap in and then stroke your fingers over the fly like this or over the hook shank and back onto the hair. You don't really have to if you're careful, but you don't want to do that because you'll drag that Flex Cement into the hair. So not grabbing the tail there, just grabbing the crosscut, I'll start to wrap this in, and I want to wrap this in so that each wrap is just in front of the previous wrap. I don't need to overlap this. That first wrap or so, you want to make certain you don't have any hairs trapped under there. But I don't need to worry about overlapping any of this because the hair will naturally just flow to the rear of the fly. I put each wrap in front of the previous one. And you can do this with, if you want a bead or a cone on the end of your fly as well, as opposed to not having one. You can do this with a cross-cut rabbit strip also with that bead or cone. And I get up to almost to the eye of the hook. I'll separate the hair just a little bit to get my thread in there. I don't want to be right on top of the eye of the hook here. Cut that off. stroking all of this back. I'll now wrap this down, making the head of the fly. So I'll go ahead and put in my whip finish. And I will put some head cement on that. I got some head cement in the eye of the hook there. Always a good idea to have a few extra strands of peacock herl sitting around on your desk, your tying area, because you can always take those little bits and clean out the eye of your hook when that happens. Now that completes the bunny leech with the exception of the tail here. A lot of people will tie these in with a long tail, and you can certainly do that. The thing that you run into, if the tail is too long, it can wrap around and foul in the hook. There's ways around that if you want a longer tail on there. I generally will clip this hide right here so that the tail, the hide length, is somewhere around a shank length. That's going to give me, the hair's going to extend out. Now, in case you've never worked with this stuff before, there is a trick here. You don't want to reach in and cut across like this because you're going to cut these hairs. You want those flowing in the back as a nice taper. Take the edge of your scissors up underneath that hide and just saw back and forth on that hide, and you'll cut the hide but not the hair. So you end up with a shorter hide here like this, but you have the longer tapered hairs in the back there. That is a very, very simple, basic bunny leech. There's all kinds of variations of this. Very, very effective fly. This one would be kind of like a nice leech, as well as maybe a sculpin or something bouncing along the bottom. Take a look. There's a number of different videos out there, like I said, that do the dubbing loop method for the body, but I find the crosscut works just as well. Maybe a little bit heavier. You don't like it because it soaks up more water. It's more difficult to cast. Whatever. Find what works for you. That is a very simple bunny leech. Thanks for watching today. Thank you for joining me at Device today. I hope you learned a new pattern, at least a tip or trick here and there. If you'd like to help Dress Irons, you can like, comment, share, subscribe, all those wonderful things for the video. You can also head out to dressedirons.com where you can buy flies, tools, stickers, and merch, or you can join a growing community over on Locals at the Dressed Irons Fly Tying Guild. You can also donate to Dressed Irons if you want through the link at the bottom of the description. I thank everybody for their ongoing support, as it really does help the creation of these videos. What's important is to remember, only fly tying. If you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.